Hi everyone. So I'm back. So if you saw my first video, then you learned that my name is Deborah, and you learned that my husband transitioned to eternal bliss um, New Year's Day 2017. And you know a little bit about what I went through and just how bad I got, and how bad Marty got, and how horrifying this disease is called frontotemporal dementia. So I wanted to talk today a little bit about that transitional time, and I want to tell you my story, and then I want to end it by saying that I absolutely believe in an afterlife. I know it. I've experienced it, okay, to some degree, and Marty has sent me signs and messages, and I know it's out there. So. It's a little bit difficult to talk about, but Marty had an issue with a catheter. If you have a spouse that has FTD, then you know that it affects people in very different kinds of ways, and it affects the person's health. Certainly the brain and the memory and the personality, and they become almost less than human, which is the most tragic part of the disease. But another part, it's just a physical breakdown of the body. And so he had a catheter, and I needed to get him back to the urologist to get that changed out. And I realized that there might be an infection in there. And I was trying to get some help getting him out of bed because he had gotten to this point where it was really difficult for him to move. So I tried to enlist the help of some friends, and nobody seemed to be able to make it. I couldn't do it by myself. And I finally got a really good girlfriend who said, I'm coming over. So she came over, and what began sort of an odyssey of a day. And she said, I'm calling hospice. And I couldn't understand why on earth she wanted to call hospice. I'm like, he's not dying. He just needs to, get this catheter out and get another one in. But of course, she, having had a husband who died of this very disease, she knew better. So she called a hospice nurse, and the woman that came was named Deborah, oddly enough. And I still wasn't that upset about anything. I thought, well, we've really just got to get him to the doctor. And at this point, it looked like we're going to have to get him to the hospital, because it didn't seem possible that any of us could move him. So Deborah examined him, and she told me this horrifying news, and she could look at him and the soles of his feet and his circulation, and she said he has 3 days left. And I was struck dumb. I just fell to my knees. I couldn't believe it. Now I knew that FTD was terminal, and I understood that he would go in cycles. He'd be doing better, and then he'd get worse. And I didn't know what the future would hold, but that was the last thing I expected. But we still needed to get him to the hospital to have this kind of surgery to get the catheter taken out. Well, as we were waiting for the ambulance to come, then Marty and I had this special time together, and he told me he loved me over and over again. He had not said that for, years. He thanked me for taking care of him. What I didn't know at the time is that he was transitioning. He was transitioning back and forth from bliss, from heaven. And so he was experiencing this love. And it was just so heartbreaking, but also really beautiful. We had this time together. Got him to the hospital. He had to go to another hospital. And the doctors told me, go home, eat something, come back. I did. And in that process of going back, I couldn't find him. So I got to the hospital right before he was going to have his operation, and I couldn't find him anywhere. The ER was packed, And thank God for this this African American nurse. I don't know her name, but she found Marty for me, and it was it was like this amazing reunion before he had his surgery, and it was so important because when he got out of surgery, he was semi-catatonic, and he was not terribly responsive or communicative after that. So we had this time, and I will forever, ever be grateful to God for that time and for the love that we expressed for each other. He was then taken to his father's home, and hospice went there. I went there because there wasn't room in our house. Unfortunately, it's a teeny little cottage, and I expected him to last longer. I expected a lot of relatives to show up. That's not at all what happened. He did transition into heaven one night, and it was New Year's Eve, or early New Year's Eve morning, exactly 17 years to the day after we first met. When I went over to see him, he was still warm. His chest was still warm. I could still say my goodbyes. And I want you to know that if you're struggling with this and you have a spouse who has FTD, this transitional time is like, it's the most important thing that you can do if your spouse is in such a state to receive it. And hopefully he or she is. You never know with FTD, you don't know what happens. Well, we had a beautiful memorial paddle out for him. Always be grateful for that. And the next day I experienced this kind of bliss like I have never felt. And I thought it was a new experience. I was going to have that forever. And then I realized what happened is that Marty had touched me and I experienced that heavenly bliss. And he had always told me that, but I just didn't really believe it. And I finally believed and understood. I always believe in heaven, but I didn't understand, this blissful feeling of it. So of course it disappeared, once I got back to life and began the grieving process. So the other thing that happens is after your loved one passes is that you start to question again, like the afterlife. Where is he? He's in heaven, but you're concerned. And I remember Marty every night almost, and he would say two things. He would say, life is short, and you don't die, Deborah. You don't die. You transform. And he was really adamant about that. You do not die. So months later in 2017, I was cleaning out a little bit of his studio, his artist studio. I couldn't do very much. I wasn't in the mood to clean it all out, just a few drawers. And this little piece of paper, this is it. It just fluttered down to the floor, and I almost threw it away. Just picked it up, another piece of junk. But instead, I picked it up and I read it. And here's what it says. Do not stand at my grave and weep. I am not there. I do not sleep. I am 1,000 winds that blow. I am the diamond glints on snow. I am the sunlight on ripened grain. I'm the gentle autumn's rain. When you awaken in the morning's hush, I am the swift uplifting rush of quiet birds and circled light. I am the soft stars that shine at night. Do not cry at my grave and do not stand at my grave and cry. I am not there. I did not die. That was huge. That's what Marty had been saying to me all along. I did not die. And I just, again, it was one of those moments where you just fall to your knees and, you just, heaven is real. The afterlife is real. So I want to encourage you that, two things. One is that the afterlife is real. It's there. Your loved one is there. And then also that this transitional time that may not be the most beautiful time for you it's important and it's critical. And so I wish you the very best, everybody. Good luck in your journey. There's life after FTD for you, and there's an afterlife for your loved one. Okay, see you soon. Bye-bye.